9:30, so welcome everyone to the November 24th board meeting of the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Just want to remind you, Chris Harrington is serving as our meeting host, so if you have a connection problem or issue, please contact either through the chat feature or Chris is in the office today at extension 229. I'd like to remind everyone to mute your mic if you're not speaking. Have your participant and chat windows open. Use the raise hand feature if you want to get in on the discussion, and that all votes are going to be by roll call. A further reminder, all motions include predetermined movers and seconders to help with the logistics. And I'll ask you to confirm those intentions as we deal with each agenda item. Certainly there'll be a motion to add something to the agenda that I'll look for a mover and a seconder. You'll note today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Upper Thames YouTube channel as part of our requirement to allow public viewing of the proceedings. So I'd like to start with our traditional territorial greeting and acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Lapane peoples who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Delaware Nation at Moraviantown. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of the local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island. I understand we have no regrets today, so I'll ask Michelle to call the roll so we can post attendance.
Marie Blosh.
I'm here.
Alan Dale.
Present.
Don Edmiston.
Here.
Anna Hopkins.
Here.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Nancy Manning.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
He's muted. Yep, there he is.
Oh, he's here.
Yep.
Perfect. Paul Mitchell.
Here.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes.
Brian Petrie.
I'm here.
Jim Reffel.
Here.
Joe Salter.
Here.
Mark Schadenberg.
Here.
Alex Westman.
Here.
And Sandy Levin.
Here. Right, I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder to add as item 6.7, the report that was sent out yesterday on the Ndmp proposals.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Sorry, I didn't catch the mover.
Anna, I'll move.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Brian, for second. Is there any discussion on adding that item? Michelle, could you call the roll on adding that to the agenda, please?
Marie Blosh.
Yes.
Alan Dale.
Yes.
Don Edmiston.
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Nancy Manning.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes.
Brian Petrie.
Yes.
Jim Reffel.
Yes.
Joe Salter.
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg.
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Hugh, would you move the agenda as amended, and Paul, could you second it?
I so move.
And I will second.
Any discussion? Michelle, call the roll, please.
Marie Blosh.
Yes.
Alan Dale.
Yes.
Don Edmiston.
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Nancy Manning.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Sandy Levin.
Yes. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing and hearing none. Minutes of the previous meeting, Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. Anna Marie, could you move them and Brian second?
Yes, I so move.
And seconded.
Thank you. Any questions or corrections on the minutes of September 29th and then the closed session minutes? Seeing none. Anna Marie, Michelle, can you call the roll?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Sandy Levin.
Yes. Seeing no business arising from the minutes and no delegations today. So I'll move to item 6, which is business for approval. And the first item is the Finance and Audit Committee update. Can I get Jim to move and Joe to second that we approve the recommendations as presented in the report?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Joe. Just briefly for the board, the major item coming out of the Finance Committee is the first part, which is the capitalization and amortization guidelines. As the report points out, it's been reviewed by Deloitte as part of their work for us. So I'll open the floor for questions on all parts of the report. I see no hands. So I'll ask Michelle to call the roll on approving the recommendations as presented in the report.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Sandy Levin.
Yes. Moving on to item 6.2, the fee schedule. Can I ask Mark to move it and Alex to second?
Yes. To move it.
And seconded by Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Ian, did you want to speak to this, or I know the managers are here for any questions from the board?
To you, Sandy, I think we'll just entertain questions if there are any.
Scrolling, looking for hands to the report.
Mark has his hand up.
Thank you. Mark?
Just getting troubles to get that hand feature to work here this morning on my computer, so I apologize for that. But I guess through Ian or through our chair Sandy to Tracy, just wanted to get a quick background, a quick update onto when you start looking at fee policies and schedules for the year when it comes to a planning file. Let's say you've just opened up a brand new planning file of a brand new subject that's come across your desk. How is it that you can sort of track to see whether or not it's going to be an easy project or a difficult project, and how to assess the fee to it? based on trying to guess how many hours might be put into it and traveling to the site, et cetera, et cetera.
Great question, because it is a it is a little bit of a challenge sometimes. But really, when we look at our fees and the way we have our fees structured, we try to categorize them into kind of your routine type of applications for permits, your minor applications, and then the more complex applications. Same thing when you have your planning files. You know, we have those same categories for kind of major and minor. So we want to reflect that if it's something that's kind of more standard, we anticipate that it's a more straightforward review. And certainly when you get into those complex reviews, that's when there's time spent for usually more and additional meetings, site visits required to the site, and then also those technical reports that accompany it. Again, it might not be a perfect system. We don't really act like consultants and have billable hours. However, this is the consistent approach that conservation authorities use throughout the province. So we try to be consistent in that manner as well.
Mark, you still have the floor.
Yeah, I guess as a follow-up to that, so basically when it's all said and done, it's supposed to be a cost recovery method similar to what, say, a building permit would be at the municipality level, and it's a matter of sort of staying within the reins of what you feel that project will take. But I'm sure sometimes there's overrides on the amount of hours you thought it might take, especially with appeals.
And yes, through the chair, that's exactly the challenge, is when there's appeals. And certainly those applications that go to LPAT, they take considerable amount of time and preparation, and that usually isn't something recoverable. So in our fees policy, we do kind of recommend that for those planning and permit reviews, we're looking for a 50% cost recovery, because it doesn't cover all of those enforcement type activities. And we really don't want those who are following the rules to have to pay for those projects that are not following the rules. So, and the enforcement compliance end of things.
Anything else, Mark?
Yeah, through the chair, I guess directing the question a different direction now to Jennifer Howley, I guess, for the conservation areas. Just give us an idea. You must be tracking how much it costs to, say, rent a campsite at other various areas versus the number of services they offer, and even boat launchings and things like that. But when it's all said and done, how does the Upper Thames compare? Are we giving away our services? Are we right on level with the marketplace for what we charge for a seasonal campground, et cetera?
Jen? Not hearing you very well, Jennifer. Not hearing you at all.
Jen, try unplugging your headset and just see if the laptop microphone will you accept the voice.
Still not hearing you. Not coming through at my end. Is anybody else hearing her?
Yeah, I think she was asking if Paul could possibly answer the question.
Yeah, I can do that if you can hear me fine.
Yep, please, Paul.
Sure. Yeah, we do a comparison every year. It depends on what we're comparing it to: provincial parks, private parks, other conservation authorities. Sometimes it's apples to oranges based on the services that we provide. We're certainly not giving away any of our services. For the most part, we're kind of mid-range on most things. But like I said, sometimes it's a hard comparison with the services we provide. We are a bit of a unique conservation area as far as the seasonal camping and what we provide. So that one's always a bit of a tough one. There's a lot of variables within that. So, but we're probably middle ground on those things.
Okay, Mark?
I guess just as a summary, I just wanted to make sure that the revenues and stuff are sort of on track, because obviously you want to maximize your revenues without losing all your customers, kind of goes without saying. So that's why I just wanted to get clarification on that to make sure dollars were solid.
Okay, thank you. Tony, then Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going through the fee schedule. So I see on page 11, under minor municipal projects requiring technical reports, we've dropped the fee from $750 to $120, so it appears, but I believe we haven't found that many efficiencies yet. I think that's probably a typo.
Yeah,
Yes, I can confirm. That was brought to my attention. My apologies. I had meant to point that out initially.
I assume it's 120, not 1,200, right?
No, it's 1,200. It was
200.
750, and then it is now 1,200 to align with the other fees of that same type.
So,
Tony, you have the floor.
So if that's the case, I guess that's merely an alignment thing, or is that actually a cost requirement to recover costs? I mean, I'm just concerned that that adds quite a burden to the municipalities.
Tracy?
Yes, if I can through the chair. As you will see, all of the other applications for routine, minor, and major fall into, and then those complex applications. The fee schedules are generally $750, $1,200, and then $2,200. So, or in the case of very large scale applications, up to $5,500. So it was merely an alignment type thing, and also clarifies that this is also replacements. Previously, we just had one schedule for routine that was $750, which are those projects that are repairs. And then there wasn't a major or a minor application, it was just major. So it jumped from a fee schedule of $750 for routine, and then everything else was considered a major project. So instead, we've introduced this minor project to deal with those bridge and culvert replacements that often do have technical supports and analysis associated with them, and at a mid-range fee. So again, we thought it reflected better the level of effort that had to go into those applications, and still doesn't jump those applications up to the $2,200 fee.
Okay.
Tony?
And secondly, on page 14, the comprehensive environmental impact studies, 2020 fee was $1,070, and we made a big jump up to $1,075. Is that $5 extra necessary, or?
The previous fee schedule, that was the typo. It was always $1,075. Sorry, you caught another typo. So fees remained unchanged.
Okay, thank you.
Brian?
I just wanted to comment on, obviously staff's been busy the last little while with a lot of comprehensive reports that are very technical in nature. So I thank them for that. Obviously this is a document that's a living document, so it changes all the time. I missed my opportunity with the last one. I want to thank Christine for giving very good, her team, very good, concise answers as to that document for the capital items and all the definitions and everything. It was an enjoyable read, as was this one, and as was the next one. But so it's been a busy year with lots of complex documents, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into those, because you can see it in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anna?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too want to thank staff for the report. It was really interesting and informative, and a lot of work that goes into it. So generally speaking, not too many changes going on. I do have a question around the forestry. If you could just add a little bit or give a little bit more information about the changes there.
Who from staff would like to take that?
Brad should be on the call, I believe.
Yeah. Brad, go ahead.
Can you hear me, Sandy?
Hear you very clearly.
Awesome. We stay fairly close in touch with our suppliers almost week to week or month to month, just because of what's happening out there with nurseries, both locations where we get seedling stock and large stock. So we try to stay as up to date as possible with our fees to reflect what those costs are going to be from those suppliers. And then we build in our labor to those fees.
Anna?
Yeah, and I assume the prices are going up.
Yeah, they're kind of, it's a bit of a shotgun thing going on right now, because yes, costs are going up. Last year there was some flexibility with suppliers in terms of backing out of contracts and things. This year we've been told that there will not be flexibility with most of the suppliers, but the seedlings should be fairly straightforward this coming year, 2021. Hardwoods and the larger stock from some nurseries will start to get a bit challenging because of the demand and of species, not only conservation authorities and other folks trying to purchase trees, but with people stuck at home, they're planting more trees than they traditionally have been. So there's that competition that's going on. So things, as I say, things are changing day to day, and species are changing day to day, and availability of those species. So we're doing the best we can and staying on top of it, as I say, as much as we can.
Thank you for that. I just do want to bring staff's attention on page, I think it's 16. It could be also a typo on the Lakeview Pavilion, looking at the fees for 2020 being $255 and proposed fees for 2021 being $27.
Yes. Yeah. Good catch, Anna.
Thanks again to everyone for the work.
Can I get clarity from staff on the item Anna noted? The pavilion rental of the Lakeview Pavilion was $255, changed to $27.
This is Jennifer. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. That is a typo. It should be $270.
Okay. Thank you. I have Paul and then Tony.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. My question is about the first page of Schedule 2. There's a line, non-vehicle day pass new for 2021, but $8 and $8. So is that actually new? And if it is that a response to changing circumstances where people are coming up, I presume walking up or bicycling up to the conservation areas?
Jennifer? I think we lost you again. Maybe Paul? Jennifer, you were muted. Do you want to try unmuting?
There we go. Hey, is that better?
Yes.
Sorry, not having a very good day. Yes, to answer, Paul, your question, that's correct. We are seeing more people walking into the conservation areas, particularly at Fanshawe and Pittock. Or sorry, yeah, Fanshawe and Pittock based on location, not so much Wildwood, but that is to address that need.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Tony?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't ask this question earlier, Mr. Chair. I did have it in my notes, and thanks to Anna for bringing up the forestry aspect. So it's a 25% increase in the price of conifer seedlings. Do we think that this could be a barrier to purchase and our planting agenda, or is this a real number? Is it fixed? Is there any negotiation on that? Just curious on that. Thank you. Brad maybe already answered part of this, but I'd like to know that that's a pretty big increase.
Brett?
Sorry, Tony, I'm not sure I understood that.
I think what Tony is saying, if I've caught it, is on page 19 of the fee schedule, the conifer seedlings, the cost goes from 80 cents to $1.
Yeah, and that's a true reflection from Somerville Nursery today of their expected increase in costs for seedlings. So that's right from the nursery, is just their cost of production and getting it to us.
Tony?
Is that because of labor shortages last year, trying to get trees transplanted and care and maintenance and pulling and so on and so forth?
Yeah, in speaking with John, our understanding is, yeah, 100%. It's all associated with labor to pull the stock to get the stock here. Yeah.
And do we anticipate that might be adjusted downward again, or is this going to be the new norm?
Our concern is that might be adjusted upwards, actually. That we don't see in the short term that that's going to be lower. Certainly we hope the case might be that it comes back down in a year or two if when things return to normal. But in the short term, there's actually a concern that things may increase.
Thank you. And do you sense that there's going to be any resistance to the increased price?
Yeah, there's a few other things on the table. One is there's a bit of a cutback in the 50 million trees. Reflect a little bit in that. That being said, we've secured a couple of contracts, so we're hoping that we can maintain or at least sustain our cost share programs into 2021, which will help hopefully offset most of that increase through a couple of different sources of contracts that we've secured. So in the short term, 2021, we hope things will stay fairly consistent as to where they were in 2020 as far as overall costs to landowners. Going forward, again, we're not sure what will happen there.
Okay. And will you be tracking doing a trend line on the amount of trees planted versus the cost to see if there's any change that we might relate to the cost?
Yes, certainly we keep track of all the trees we plant, where they're planted. Annually, it's on our geo portal actually. And so we will have all that information.
Thank you. I'd sure hate to see that reduced by any number. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there are certainly a number of carryover planting sites from 2020 into 2021 that we didn't get because we did not get seedling stock in 2020. So we will have seemingly more plantings in 2021, but that again is offset by the reduced plantings in 2020.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Good questions. I see no other hands. I don't hear any others. So Michelle, could you call the roll on the motion to accept the report and the recommendations for the fee schedules?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Sandy Levin.
Yes. Moving on to item 6.3, the Upper Thames draft budget. Can I ask Marie to move it, Alan to second it, to get it on the floor?
So moved.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Ian,
Yes.
would you like to speak to this report?
Yeah, if I can, just briefly and at a high level, certainly Christine and managers are on the call to deal with specific questions, but I just do want to to speak to what we're trying to accomplish with this budget, because I'm sure you've seen the tone of the report is that we're trying to present this as a maintenance budget. We are not being aggressive. We're foregoing a request for the remaining money for environmental targets. So we're trying to keep things modest in terms of an increase. And the argument is that's a reflection of the pandemic's impact on our communities. Now, I'm calling it a maintenance budget. That may depend on perception. It's maintenance. We have about just over $600,000 deficit forecast at this point, which isn't that unusual this early in the year. We do expect to find revenue, secure new contracts. From a municipal levy point of view, it averages a 3.0% increase on the operating side of the levy. You know, again, municipally, is 3% a maintenance budget or not? I guess that's open to perception. But even within that 3%, note that we have huge variations. I think Oxford County's increase is 7.3%. Thames Center is 1.5. So again, that's the product of that provincial funding formula that we don't have any control over. So there's variance. But my main point here is, while in the report, I think I said explicitly that we are foregoing strategic objectives of the organization to accommodate for this very exceptional year. That's true in terms of our recommendation around targets. But the point I don't make in writing that I want to make verbally is this is very strategic. We are trying to keep our budget increase as modest as we can, because this is all positioning for the impacts of Bill 108 and Bill 229. So we know in the next year, we're going to have to go out and negotiate with all 17 member municipalities about what services they want us to continue and what services the municipalities are willing to pay for. So they have the opt-out opportunity. So we're trying to position ourselves to be as reasonable as possible moving into those negotiations. I don't think we'll get credit, if anybody was going to give credit, for a 3% increase. But what we're trying to do is avoid exacerbating any criticism of the authority around its financial management that could jeopardize any of those negotiations for the future, because those agreements with municipalities will be multi-year, and we're trying to maximize the number of programs that the majority of our municipalities want to continue with. So I'm trying to keep it high level. So the budget that's in front of you is our best attempt to balance our needs in 2021 with positioning, knowing that the game is changing because of Bill 229 and Bill 108. So that's the perspective, Mr. Chair. And certainly if the board has questions I'll direct most questions to Christine or to the individual managers about any specifics. So I'll leave it with you, Sandy.
Thank you, Ian. I'm looking to the board for questions. Here we go. Paul, then Tony, and then Anna.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ian. Discussion point number 2 talks about salary review and reorganization. So it mentions about problems with staff, or possible problems with staff retention. So I just wondered, if we're losing employees, are these long-term employees who are taking early retirement? Are they people that have been here 5 or 10 years who are moving on to other things? Or is this entry-level employees that we're having trouble attracting and keeping?
The answer is yes. Now, don't interpret this comment as a huge crisis. I think we are on the very leading edge of seeing some concern. And Paul, we have experience in the past year and a half with everything you described, entry-level staff moving on to other positions. In those cases, you know, our sense is wages were a big part of that decision. Not always. Sometimes it's, you know, a significant other lives in another community. There's all kinds of reasons. But we're also seeing longer term employees, like up to 20 years, moving on to other opportunities. Again, I can't always say it's specifically wages. I think wages factor into their decision. But we have also noted when we've been trying to recruit new staff, we're aware that there are competing opportunities for what we see as positions with less responsibility and fewer opportunities are paying more than we are. So we are just on the leading edge of this. So that recommendation number 2 is just to do the salary review. And again, we participate or we support other conservation authorities when they do their salary reviews. We provide the data for them from our authority. So we get to see the results. And that's another case where we see that we're losing any competitive edge for sure. So number 2 is just about doing the salary review. I will tell you what the results are. I can anticipate, and how we deal with that, I do not have a recommendation or a strategy at this point. So this is just step 1. If that answers your question, Paul.
Yes, thank you. And a follow-up question. You alluded that there are other opportunities for potential employees or current employees. Are they primarily private industry, government, education, or is there again all across the board?
I would say when it comes to other opportunities, it's our professional staff that have those, engineers, planners, those types of people with professional accreditation. So private sector typically pays more than we do. It's a different work environment, different work volume sometimes. That's, I think, where the main opportunities are. And that applies to, you know, new staff just starting on contract right up through to seasoned veterans. So that's where we're seeing the pressure point right now is our professional staff. And that's a concern because those are the types of positions where experience is a huge value along with that professional accreditation. So having high turnover in those positions, I think affects our ability to deliver our programs.
Thank you, Ian. I'm glad to see that you're being proactive on that before it becomes a crisis issue, because the people are the most important part of the Upper Thames. And in the last 2 years, that's what's impressed me most is the dedication of our staff. So thanks for being proactive, and thanks for your answers.
Tony, then Anna and Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several questions. First of all, I'll start with the operating budget summary, I guess, on the amortized levy from previous years. So municipal general levy, we have planned there $611,000 or 155% increase. There's a footnote there that says some target activity in 2020 is delayed. So my interpretation is it's collected, but we haven't spent it. So it's there to deliver on activities that we couldn't deliver on previously. Is that correct?
Christine or Ian?
Actually,
it's on the summary page.
Page
3.
3.
And it's on the screen.
Percent change from final 2020 budget was positive 155%.
Yeah, I may defer. Chris Harrington, I don't know if this is the issue you want to speak to about deferred targets revenue and the impact COVID had on that as well.
Yeah, it's not specifically in my budget, but I believe that's what it is. Other managers may have a take on this, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. I think Teresa's on board, but I think a chunk of this was related to LID programming. I can't remember, but that's generally what it was. As I understand it, was on the ground target-based project work that couldn't happen this year that will hopefully be picked up in the coming year.
So to clarify, this is related to the strategic plan and those targets?
Chris?
Yes.
Okay, so in actual fact, when I look at that, realizing that we've got all that money sitting there that was amortized for projects, I think that supports Ian's suggestion to defer any further ask for money on strategic plan activities, because we've still got a lot there that hasn't been spent or put onto the projects. But that's just my interpretation, obviously. But I think it supports that notion that Ian has put forward. Flood control levies, I see that we have a 54% increase there as well. And I guess my question is, what's driving that?
Yeah,
Chris or Dave, or who's answering that one?
either Chris Tasker or Christine. I'll ask to answer this one.
Unless Christine wants to jump in first, I'll do my best to answer that.
Go ahead, Chris.
So I think one of the most important things to point out with this is that we've had some changes in our, I'm going to refer to them generally as accounting practices, and this has caused us some grief as far as how we are recording our dam safety reviews. Dam safety reviews are very large projects. They're happening currently at 2 of our structures and will continue to happen at the other structures. We were previously budgeting for those in capital, and now they're being budgeted in operating. So all of the revenues and expenditures had to switch from one category to the other. So I suspect that that's why you're seeing that, part of why you're seeing that, that significant increase there.
Okay. Can we get some clarification on that at some point in the future? Just a confirmation of it.
Yeah, well, Christine, maybe you could help and cover that now, or?
Sure. So, yes, we're budgeting for the dam safety reviews, which are multi-$100,000 projects, as an operating cost. In the past, when they might have last been done 10 or 12 years ago, they probably were levied as a capital project, or the idea behind those dam safety reviews was that they were a one-time capital effort. So we've got them categorized as an operating cost, but if you look at the levy page at the back of the budget document, the capital levy has actually fallen by 75%. So all we're trying to do is get the operating work levied with operating levy, and get the capital work levied with capital levy. A little bit more clear. The capitalization and amortization policy at the beginning of the meeting, that was one of the efforts in order to do that. So yes, while the dam and flood control levy appears to have increased a great deal, most of that is due to the dam safety review, which I understand from Chris is a 10-year event that's happening now in 2021 and 2022. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is on conservation areas. So we have gone from 2020 budget, 3,700,000 roughly, to an actual, I guess, of 2,500,000. But then in the 2021, the plan is to go back up to 3,500,000, or 40%. So I guess this is a return to a previous normal, or near normal, I guess. Do we think that's real? I think given the fact that vaccines and that will be possibly available in the new year, I think we're still going to have some restrictions and guidelines on reduced concentration of people in activities. So I just questioned whether that's a real number to put in there to anticipate for revenues, or should we be a little more cautious on that number anticipating. I think reality would suggest to me that that's probably not going to hit the mark, even though a lot of people want to get out of the house and get conservation areas. I'm just a little concerned that that might be a little premature in anticipation.
Jennifer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So from the revenue side of things, our revenues do include things like weddings and rental, such as bicycles, those sorts of things. Are we being optimistic? Maybe in those cases, but also we also have some time to be able to follow guidelines better than we had this spring when the restrictions were made. We were just in a shuffle trying to get the parks open, and we went with what we could deal with at the time. But we have more time now to try to plan for how do we deal with cleaning rental equipment after each use, those sorts of things. Should it be in the budget right now? Again, it's a draft budget, so I'm optimistic we're gonna try to achieve it, but we can relook at that if it's a concern.
Well, I would much sooner overachieve than underachieve, and I think you've really slipped the noose halfway down your neck, I guess. I hate to see you paint yourself in a box, and good for you if you're confident in that and meet that, but it affects the planning for the whole of the budget. So I just have a little concern that that's a real tough challenge for you.
If Tony, though, if you do look at what the pre-COVID budget, we're still less than what the pre-COVID budget was for revenues. So
it's a small percentage less, though, but as compared to the reality of what's going on. Anyway, if you're confident in that, that's fine. I just it caught my attention for sure.
Sure.
My next question is on the mission cost centers and the community partnerships, which is anticipated to be up 16% or up to 1.5 million. And this is another question I asked myself, is this real? I mean, I realize that a lot of community partnership work happens in the first quarter of the year, really. You know, a lot of winter meetings and stuff like that before people get out and get active. And I know some of the community partnerships is on the groundwork too, but I guess my question is this a real number? Do we think that's possible?
Who from staff?
I can answer that. This is Teresa.
Thank you.
I just, I have to admit that our community partnerships budgets have changed about every 3 weeks, you know, as we're working with our partners in education particularly. But most recently, and just before we drafted this budget, we entered into an agreement with the Huron Perth Catholic Board that has booked a lot of our time, kind of January, February, almost booked us solid. So the boards, now this again may change. So, but right now, you know, we think that we are being almost cautiously optimistic because of contracts that we already kind of have in our pockets.
Okay. So the next area, thank you. The next area I had question on was for expenditures for the conservation authorities, so or areas, sorry. So that's back up to 4.3 million. And again, that's probably more reflective of the times, I think, and just how you balance that with the revenues for the conservation areas. Again, that's part of the challenge, I guess. So I'm sure you have a plan in place, but it was just seemed like quite an increase there, back to previous levels, and I expect it could be even higher, meeting the criteria for cleaning and all that other kind of associated stuff. So anyway, a big challenge. and it just sent up an alarm bell for me. The next area that I had a question on was expenditures for wages, benefits, and per diems, back up to pretty much where it was in the pre-COVID, to 10 million, or 7.5% reduction from pre-COVID levels. To me, that's merely a one-person adjustment. So I guess from Ian's perspective, is that, again, a real number? Do we expect anything different than that? What could influence that change? I'd like an opinion on that.
Where are you, Tony?
Sorry,
Which page?
all units, all activities under expenditures. So page 5.
Thank you. Who from staff want to take that on?
Yeah, I can start, Sandy, and I'll look to managers. So certainly this is a roll-up number. When we're developing the budget, it's the units do their own forecasts of staffing capacity that's needed to deliver on what we have. And then those individual unit numbers roll up to this. And certainly we experienced 2020 with fewer staff than we needed to do the job. Your comments, Tony, about the conservation areas and the level of expenses, or even the forecast for revenues. CA's operated with a skeleton crew of staff, but on the revenue side, we had exceptional numbers. And I think part of Jennifer's forecast for next year is recognizing we had a whole bunch of new people visiting conservation areas, and we're hoping to retain some of those. So we don't envision in 2021 doing less work. We're still trying to do what has to be done, what we struggled with through this year, which is not sustainable. So we need to return to the capacity that we had pre-COVID. And I think that's what these numbers reflect. We had a lot of vacant positions through 2020 that we need to fill just to deliver on our mandate. We're still trying to do more. We still have a strategic direction here as well, that we have some targets to achieve, and that's not possible without the staff capacity. So you're right, Tony, that there's a lot of uncertainty about whether restrictions will affect our program delivery, the numbers that we can provide. That in turn could affect our staff capacity and revenue. But for now, we think this is reasonable. I think Jennifer spoke to, we've had a year to adapt to working different ways. So a year ago, we might have just canceled things. Now we have new ways of still delivering the same program. So we need that capacity. So that's my overview, but I'll look to if any managers have any insight beyond what I've provided.
Don't see any hands up from staff. So Tony, you still have the floor.
Okay. Legal, audit, and insurance, that's up over pre-COVID numbers quite substantially, I guess. Well, some might not consider 9.5%, but still it's a reflection of an increase that I was kind of concerned to see. So is there, what's the thinking there, I guess?
Who would like to answer that?
I'll direct this to Christine if I can.
Please. Christine?
There, just had to unmute. So don't forget, in the total wage per diem benefits budget line, there is the increase in wages. So the grid went up 0.6%. So even if the staff headcount didn't change, that dollar number is going to grow in any case. And Teresa mentioned new contracts. She has in mind that she's still got to clear some of that target levy from 2020 for projects. She's got staff in place in order to do that. So total headcount is actually not that very different, but last I checked, it was, I think, in the realm of 8 of a full-time equivalent, lower than our pre-COVID budget. So there's been some juggling, and there's been some changes in some staff responsibilities during this past year. So that number reflects trying to get the staff closer in line with the projects the way we're delivering them now and expect to next year.
And Christine, Tony was asking about the legal audit insurance and banking line. I know some of that is insurance costs have gone up.
Yes.
But could you provide more detail for Tony and the board?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The insurance, we are estimating 25% going up. The amount of legal fees, we have a hard time determining what is going to crop up during the course of the year, but we've made best estimates on those as well. All our insurance costs are distributed across the board, but they are totaled there. We also have a part year issue going on because our insurance policy doesn't cover January to December exactly. So we've made the best estimates we can there. Surprisingly, our banking fees have gone down this year, which has been very nice. And I haven't heard whether that's going to continue to be low, but we've estimated those conservatively as well.
So the insurance cost increase, is that based on property and liabilities, or is that more related to employee benefits?
No, that insurance is property and liability. The employee benefits part is with the wages and benefits.
Well, that's what I thought. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. On
Thank you,
the
Tony. Oh, go ahead. You do have the floor.
Mission Center capital costs, the 108% increase on technology, vehicles, and some infrastructure. That's pretty comparable to pre-COVID. So I just want to be clear, I guess, all these percentage figures on the end, they're related to the final 2020 budget and not the pre-COVID 2020 plan. Is that correct? Or is there a blend of percentages here?
No, they should all be on the final 2020 budget.
Okay. I didn't go through every number to make sure, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
On page 8, on supplies, so we're looking at a 34% increase, which is relative to the capitalization policy. I think that's self-explanatory probably, but just I wanted to note it. And that takes me to page 11, under the wages, benefits, and per diems for environmental planning and regulations, a 12% increase in capacity for regulations timeliness. I guess I know that we're pretty effective, and I've heard on many occasions that we are better than the standard for turnaround times for various applications and such with respect to regulations. Is this needed, I guess, is my question.
I assume Tracy might answer that.
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, Tony is correct, and you'll see the report on timelines later in the agenda. But one of our challenges is in keeping up with those timelines is also completing the other work. And this year especially, when we've been told by the province to expect new Section 28 regulations this fall, we're also going to have to undertake a lot of work to update our policies and procedures and prepare for these changes as well. So certainly, yeah, we're working towards those timelines, but in order to maintain that level of service, there's going to be a lot of other work to do as well. So not knowing what that's going to look like yet, knowing this is a draft budget, wanted to include some capacity to allow that those policies and procedures and these changes and regulations to be incorporated into our work too.
Tracy, is that hiring a part-time person or hiring some consulting help? What's the nature of that change?
No, we have put in for hiring a person and a half. Part of that we expect to be more of a, updating our website and background information so it's available. One of the things we are looking at is some Ndmp funding as well to offset some of those costs and prepare for those changes and the regulatory changes and floodline mapping too. So early to say, but know that we're going to have a lot of work to do while still delivering our regular program.
Tony?
Yeah, so the anticipation for regulation changes is still a year out. And we don't have those defined yet, I guess. So this is kind of a best guess, perhaps.
Through the chair, yeah, it is a best guess, but from what we heard from the webinar that the province delivered, one of their slides said, later this fall, we intend to further consult on regulatory proposals, in brackets, mandatory programs and services, Section 28, natural hazards, Section 29, conservation authority lands, agreements and transition, an end bracket under the Conservation Authorities Act, which will be posted to the Environmental Registry for consultation. So we're not quite sure when those new regulations will take effect, but we're expected to see these proposals in the coming weeks. And as with this government, tends to be the transition time is quite quick. So want to be prepared for those changes.
So having said that, have you already started an analysis of shortcomings?
Tracy?
I'm through the chair, shortcoming on what activities have not been undertaken, if I could clarify the
Sorry,
question.
what might be anticipated going forward? Have you kind of delved into that a little bit and made a short list of what you anticipate may be required? Is that where part of this is coming from?
Yes, through the chair. One of the shortcomings and things that we anticipate is updated policies and procedures for approvals of Section 28 permits. The regulation is changing. That document will need to be updated to reflect those changes in regulation. Also, our website, information to relay information to the public, streamline those processes. We currently have some frequently asked questions, but we want to expand on that, especially if the regulation has changed and there's different answers to those questions now. We really aren't sure how much the regulation will change, and but certainly from what we've heard from the initial discussions was that the province wanted more consistency amongst CAs. So instead of the conservation authorities each having their individual Section 28 regulations, so 36 of them throughout the province, it would be one standard regulation. How that changes, we're not sure. What that means for each individual CA when we have a different regulatory standard, ours being the 1937 flood event, we're not certain. So again, just trying to anticipate that there's lots of things that could come up, and it might be, say that documentation component, and then also website and information and education materials to be going out to the public as well to inform of these changes.
Thank you. And while Tracy's on the line here, on the hook, I guess. So at our last meeting also, we discussed and approved the updates for hearings. So one of the comments was that additional training would be required for training with respect to the hearings under the electronic hearing procedure. So is that already done, and is that included in the 2020 budget?
Through the chair, we have not completed the hearings training. sent a question out to Conservation Ontario, and even had a call with Grant, our solicitor, about this. But kind of the timing of these changes of the CA Act review, I think have taken priority for some of those that might be helping out with doing that training. But exactly as you said, as with any regulatory change, we would expect each staff person to update and be trained and understand what those changes in the regulation mean. So that's usually a part of it. You know, thinking back to 2006 when we had our last regulation change, there was significant staff time. At that time, it was updating our regulation limit mapping as well, a whole new process for mapping. We were given the guidelines in October of 2005 and had to have our updated mapping into the minister by the end of February so it could be approved in May. So I'm just going from my past experience of kind of the timelines expected from the province when there are these changes and implementation happens. I would expect the same thing. And like I said, with that and updating and educating everyone else, we also have to educate ourselves and our staff to be able to better answer those questions and to do our jobs. So big part of that will be the training component as well.
So are you suggesting that Conservation Ontario is the reason for the delay in the training?
Through Tony, that was, I had expected something from Conservation Ontario, and I was clarifying. I sent an email to Conservation Ontario to confirm if indeed that was what we understood to happen. I haven't heard back, just given the timing. So not sure if it's definitely them that are doing it, but I was seeking clarification on that point.
Well, I guess that in itself probably affects the delivery of our services and to our clients. So I just, I know that I had a question a couple months ago with Ian on that. So it would be nice to get that put to bed and so that we can move forward and support our clients who are asking for hearings. And I think I'm getting pretty close to the end of my questions here. So with respect to conservation areas, again, I think Jennifer's pretty much addressed it, but in the expenditures specific on page 19, a 23% increase in regular staff. So that's more than pre-COVID, which I anticipate is for the additional workload required to keep these conservation areas running. And also there's additional training for PPE and travel reimbursements. I guess it puts us, the final number in the draft budget puts it at a loss of $167,000. And where does that money come from to cover the deficit?
I don't know, Christine, it's an accounting question. Did you want to answer it, or is it for Jennifer?
No, I can answer. The parks have a fairly healthy reserve at the moment that's been built up over 5 or more years already. So that deficit, if it turns out to be a deficit, or whatever number that is come the end of the year, that will go against the park reserve.
Sorry, it was a little bit broken on my end. Did I understand that's coming from reserves from previous year's activities?
At the parks, yes, park reserves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
On page 21, under the community partnerships, so we've increased wages, benefits, and per diems in the expenditure category by 6.1%, which is more than pre-COVID. So we're anticipating doing more and having more staff on the ground involved with community partnerships. Is that how I read this?
Yes, that's reflective of a couple of things. We have somebody off on maternity leave, and we're filling that position, kind of filling it in a bit, but we're also having a new position under targets to help with a lot of the communication work that we have kind of Tracy mentioned it. So it's going to come out of this unit, but that staff person is showing up in our budget because it's going to be helping do a lot of communication across with a lot of our municipalities and with a lot of our partners.
Okay, so will this be part of the plan and part of the cost in negotiating with municipalities as well? Is that captured under this community partnership category?
Yes.
Or where will them costs, sorry, or where will those costs be applied in the negotiation with municipalities once we get a definition on core versus?
I think we have to decide. We have to find out what their definitions are, and you know, if it's communications that are supporting water and information management, or you know, things that are core. You know, we'll be peeling off those pieces, I guess, that are core and non-core.
Okay. I didn't know if community partnership was taking the hit for all of that or how that was being applied.
Yeah. I hope not.
Okay, thanks. I'm probably going to have more questions, but I'll surrender the floor in the sake of time and for other people's sake.
Thank you, Tony. Anna, then Mark and Marie.
Yeah, thank you. And I had two questions. My first question was already answered in Tony's question regarding property insurance premiums going up 25%. And I heard Christine say that it is a best estimate at the moment. What I'm hearing in the industry, insurance premiums are going to be going sky high. So my question through you, Mr. Chair, maybe to Christine, is when will we get a better understanding about these increased premiums that I know we've already put in 25% increase, which is a large increase. When will we have a better understanding exactly what our premiums will be?
Christine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we see the premium notice from the insurer in about mid-March, sometimes the 1st of March. I did say it's a best estimate, but we did speak with the insurer. We checked premium rates that some local municipalities have experienced already this year. We saw 35, 40% in some cases. So we know it could be very high. We had originally pegged an increase of 20%, and then I tacked on another 5 just for safety's sake, just to see what it would look like, what it would flesh out as. So we're not going to know for sure until 1st of March, because the policy year doesn't begin till 1st of April.
Thank you for that. I think it's something that we should be watching, and I'm glad that you're going to be on top of this one, because the increases, I personally have grave concerns what we may be expecting in the new year. My second question is with this recommendation, if we approve it, we'll be sending it out to municipalities. And I would like to have a better understanding. I know this is a draft budget. We're looking at a deficit of 636,000. We know that may change. I'd like to have a better understanding on the communication that we are going to be having with all the municipalities moving forward with this budget, given the changes that are about to come forward. I think we need to underline the importance of what we're doing with this budget and how we are going to be looking forward with the changes that we know are coming to CAs. So I am asking that question in particular because the City of London tabled its budget last week at committee, and first question came from one of my colleagues, well, this increase that we are predicting in the City of London, is that taken into account with all our boards and commissions? Do we know that? And I just want to know, what does the municipality, particular City of London, know right now, and how and what the plan is moving forward with those conversations and updates to each and every municipality, I do think it's very important. It's always been important, but this year in particular.
Ian?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Anna. So through the chair, keep in mind we're a month late this year with the approval and circulation of this draft budget. So several municipalities have been in touch with us. I've communicated with the municipalities, letting them know things were going to be later. So certainly if whatever version is approved today, our objective, Anna, is to get this out to municipalities this week as soon as possible. Certain municipalities, London's always on the phone with Christine and myself, so they're probably more aware of our thinking than most, but I will say several municipalities have been reaching out to us: Oxford, Stratford, Middlesex Centre, lots. As far as how we communicate, timing is tight. I envision the process is the same. We will send the draft budget. I will have the covering memo, Anna, speak to what we're trying to achieve with this budget, but putting it in context of Bill 229. But beyond that package, we always extend the invitation to answer questions or attend council if it will help clarify any issues. So I've been booked for Zoom presentations already, and I expect that to continue. I think, Anna, the difficulty is this budget we're sending is 2021, and we're referencing future changes to conservation authorities and our services and our ability to levy, but we have no clue what those changes are or when they'll be implemented. The proposal right now is changes would affect the 2022 budget year. There's pushback against that to extend it another year. There's just so much speculation with nothing solid. So, I mean, we will speak as clearly as we can with municipalities. We'll accommodate as many questions and requests as we can, but I don't see the process being any different than other years, with the draft budget going, memo, and an opportunity to follow up. If that answers your question, Anna.
Yeah, it does. And I'm glad to hear that this is going to be going out as soon as possible. So that's going to be important. And that communication piece, I know in the past, we've done open houses even, but I know the uncertainty is there, and it is just 2021 that we're looking at. But the more we communicate, and I think the better off we will be as well. So thank you.
Mark, then Marie.
Yes, thanks a lot, Sandy. I guess first question, is just a real generic, wide open question. Ian's probably the best to answer it. Why is it through the overall budget for municipal levies, for example, Thames Centre and Middlesex Centre are divvied up as separate, but when it comes to Oxford, it's Oxford County, it's not Woodstock, Ingersoll, and the various townships. So our number looks quite big at a projected 943,000 levy for 2021. Why is it not broken down between townships, for example, and municipalities?
Yep.
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, it is unique. Oxford's regional government, the payment of conservation authorities goes through the county. In fact, your appointments to the board are officially your county representatives, even though you represent each of the lower tier municipalities or single tier. So it's always been the practice. And Mark, every year I get questions about from individual municipalities saying, I see the Oxford bill, but what's the bill for Ingersoll? Or what's the bill for Southwest Oxford? And that's a question I always have to direct people to talk to Lynn Buchner at the county to figure out how costs are apportioned. So I will say, this has always been the practice. It's because of regional government, but there are two examples I will point out on the levy summary page, which is the very last page in the budget. Zora and Southwest Oxford are there as individual line items. There's the odd either property or project that does benefit those municipalities exclusively, so we charge them separately, but generally it's all through Oxford. I hope that explains it, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Lottie. I'm just going to say that as a comment, the 7.3% the projected increase is might be a hard sell this year. It's quite an increase over previous years. It certainly is a percentage. It seems like Oxford's taken the hit, whereas other townships or areas seem to take the hit the year previous. But the prices of houses, for example, in Woodstock have grown astronomically, so it's gone way up. So it's maybe it's a bit of a reflection on the total market value assessment there too.
Over to Marie. Then I've got Jim. I thought you had a hand, and then Brian. Marie?
Yeah, no, I just was having trouble unmuting myself. Thank you. First of all, just a comment in terms of the approach to this budget, and being a maintenance budget, I think is certainly a very strategic and reasonable approach. And I think the challenge is going to be explaining that along with the percentages for the various municipalities. So I hope that works out well. But I had a couple of questions as well. One was just, and I appreciate all the other questions because it does really help explain this, but and on page, whatever it is, 5, under the expenditures, under unallocated costs, could I just get an explanation on why that number changes so dramatically? It goes from like 2 to 6,700.
Christine, I think that's just an accounting issue.
So 2 to 6,000 for allocated costs is still very, very small. We have $4 million of service cost center costs which need to be distributed on formulas. If I change one number, if I change, say, the legal estimate from that number and add $5,000, for example, I have to change 300 accounts. And with the time crunch, I can't always do that, and I can't always find the little errors. So that is a leftover number. It's not a budgeted number. And when we come to do the final budget, I'm going to be making that $6,700 disappear, because hopefully I'll have time to make it disappear. So I hope that answers the question.
I hope you do too. No, I
Yeah.
think I thought it was some kind of accounting thing. I just wanted to
It is.
on that. Okay.
It is.
Yeah, no problem there. But the other question that I had was kind of about the municipal transfer payment. And it looks like that, I'm just wondering, with all of the discussions around the changes, has there been any discussion in terms of that amount changing, hopefully going up?
Ian, I think she's talking about from the province.
Yeah, so as most members recall, a year ago or so, the transfer payment was cut 50% from the province, but 50% of a small number is just a smaller number. The authorities have been lobbying for 15 years to have this increased as more responsibility is delegated from the province to us. And, you know, frankly, I'll start to rant a bit. Through Bill 229, all kinds of additional controls and responsibilities as far as reporting and oversight are being imposed on us. There's no mention of increasing funding support. Those costs are expected to be, now this is unsaid, but my assumption is those costs are expected to be assumed by the municipalities. So, Marie, I wish there was more money coming, but that's hardly even in the conversation anymore, given past decisions.
Okay, not what I want to hear, but okay. Thank you.
Just checking in. Jim, you had a hand up earlier. Are you wanting to get a question in?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did, and my only focus was going to be on the upcoming or the anticipated negotiations with the 17 local municipalities about these non-mandatory programs. And there's I've heard some sort of comments as through some of the other questions around this. I guess it's really too many unknowns right now to sort of identify, what is going to be needed in order to carry this out. I didn't know if this would be something that was already anticipated for the 2021 budget somewhere within corporate services, or perhaps I know Teresa was talking about some involvement through community partnerships. I would anticipate there might be some legal costs if there's any, depending on how the formal agreements are put together. There'll probably be some templates by province or through Conservation Ontario. So Ian, is there any sense about, or have you, I know you've given some thought to this, but I'm not sure how able you are to be accurate in terms of process for that in 2021 and where it might fit in the budget.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Jim, through the chair. I will say internally, Teresa's done a good job over the past year working with the management group to come up with what we assume would be the division between mandatory programs or core programs and non-mandatory. And that would define what we're trying to negotiate with municipalities. But that is pure speculation and not something we're wanting to publicize. I've got to be clear, and back to Tony's questions of Tracy, there has been zero discussion with conservation authorities about what these changes will look like. You would think the province announced over a year ago that there will be core and non-mandatory programs. My assumption for a lot of us would be at the staff level, those discussions would have started, there'd be back and forth. The background work and the positioning would be underway so that when regulations are developed and announced, they're based on, a workable, well-informed position. Zero has happened. There is no discussions between the province and the conservation authorities. We've requested meetings repeatedly, and I'm ranting a bit, but the practice is, as Tracy said, regulations will just be announced and imposed without any discussion or consultation. So the one we're waiting for, Jim, is before Christmas. We're supposed to see the regulation about what the mandatory programs are. So obviously that'll tell us what's non-mandatory, and then we can start speculating. But as far as including anything in the budget to plan for the administrative costs, you mentioned legal costs, negotiating 17 unique agreements will require legal reviews on the part of the municipality and us, and it's going to be iterative because we have to make an assumption of how many municipalities would participate in a program. And if municipalities opt out, then we got to go back and reallocate costs, redo the budget, reallocate costs, go back out to the municipalities. So I appreciate the cost. There will be significant administrative costs to implement this, but we're at a loss. And frankly, I've told the managers, there's no sense us speculating and developing our own plans and protocols because we have zero idea of how this is to proceed and what's involved. So at this point, we're just waiting and reacting, which is unfortunate. So
okay. That's what I figured. That's what I figured through you, Mr. Chair, and that's unfortunate. And I don't know how much focus on other programs such as COVID have sort of curtailed a lot of this work, but I wouldn't want to hang my hat on that either. So the anticipated regulation coming out before December or before Christmas, is this in the form of under the environmental website, or is this, would there be another consultation phase after that? So I know sometimes they'll post a regulation that might have 30 days, but it doesn't sound like that's the case.
Through the chair, there will be the regulation would have to be posted to the environmental registry for comment. And we've been told by the province, Tracy referred to it, that will happen, but we're all getting the opinion that's the only consultation we as authorities or the public will have. I doubt there will be separate consultation sessions.
Okay.
Unknown though.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't imagine what staff is going through trying to put a budget together at all for this type of year. So I appreciate that. I'm for getting this is just a draft budget. It's going to change, in my opinion, significantly depending on what happens at the provincial level. I'm for getting it out to the municipalities for comment and education, more importantly than anything, that this is not the final budget. It's a turbulent year, but that conversation needs to happen more for education purposes more than anything else, so that we can, again, keep that communication going on what's happening at our level and the challenges that we face. When I read the budget, you know, I know it's a maintenance budget, but it's a sad budget because we're not moving. In my opinion, we're not doing anything to further our goals in this budget. We're trying to not make anybody mad with this budget, which is sad. And unfortunately, I have a fear that the upcoming budgets over the next couple of years are going to make this one look like a rosy sunshine. So I'm for sending it out as it is because I know it's going to change, and just getting that conversation rolling. And as long as we're very clear with the municipalities that this budget is going to change and we're not in control of that, and so that they can be partners with us on that instead of reactionary.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm sure Ian is considering that in his planned communication. I see no other hands up, so I'll ask Michelle to call the roll on the recommendation that we approve the 2021 draft budget for circulation to member municipalities, noting that the final budget approval will be considered at our AGM in February 2021.
Marie Blosh,
Yeah.
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson, Tony? Tony? I'll come back to him at the end. Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes,
and Tony?
Tony's muted.
I hit the request unmute a couple times, not getting anything. So he's still in the meeting, or joined in the meeting, but not getting a response.
Tony, could you raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion? I guess we have to count that as an abstention.
Yes, according to policy.
Okay. Moving on to 6.4, the Upper Thames Board meeting dates. Can I ask Don to move and Anna to second?
So moved.
I second.
Okay. Any questions about the dates?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Anna?
Yeah, thank you. And just looking at the dates, 10 meetings, December and August, we're not meeting. Nothing much has changed to how we've done it in the past. My question is more about how we're going to be moving forward. And I know that's all about COVID and where we are at certain times, but I would like to know what staff's plan is when it comes to meeting in person or even looking at a hybrid model, if those conversations are taking place now, or when can we expect those conversations to take place?
Ian?
Great question, Anna. At a staff level, we've talked about a hybrid model continuing. I don't see the number of meetings changing, but this approach seems to work really well. We've received positive feedback about the efficiency, reduced cost for all of us. So we have no proposal in the development, but I think as soon as restrictions ease and in-person meetings are permitted again, one of the first agenda items will be a proposal about a hybrid model. But by hybrid, I think that also opens the door to things like we did last week. We're a much more nimble board with the ability to have electronic meetings. And if there is need for a special meeting, I think it's more possible and more practical than it was with only in-person meetings allowed. So you can anticipate that any staff report that talks about a hybrid model would also talk about keeping the flexibility to have special meetings as needed to be more responsive because we can. If that answers your question, Anna?
Yeah, it does. I'm glad that you're looking at that and looking forward to how we're going to be meeting in the future. I think one of the positive parts of a pandemic is being able to make us a little bit more nimble and flexible with our meetings. So really looking forward to how we're going to be doing business in the near future, I hope.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, Michelle, could you call the roll that we approve the meeting dates included in the report?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes, and apologize for earlier. I had a freeze up.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Sandy Levin.
Yes. Item 6.5, the shared waters approach to water quality and quantity. Before I ask for a mover and a seconder, I just want to ask Chris Harrington, if we endorse this, is there a commitment to funding included in that endorsement?
No, it's a great question. And actually the endorsement page that's in the document references this is kind of like continued voluntary collaboration on the effort. So there's no commitment to funding by way of endorsing the plan. On the flip side of that, I think it brings up lots of opportunity for funding from senior levels and partners and grants and things like that when we can cite our membership in this group to kind of go out and apply with that kind of, a lot of times when you apply for funding, you put, they want you to list collaborations, and this is one that's kind of up and running, it's in place, it's getting to be recognized out there, especially within the provincial ministries and agencies for things like COBA funding and stuff like that. So no commitment that there'll be an expense to us, but I think on the flip side, there's opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Tony to move and Nancy to second the recommendation that we endorse the shared waters approach?
So moved.
And I will second.
Thank you. Are there questions? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Tony, please.
Yeah, see if we can get this unmuted here. Sorry about that earlier. I could hear you, but I couldn't unmute. Anyway, just a quick question, I guess, based on knowledge of previous efforts we attempted but never succeeded at. Is this an opportunity or something we can springboard from or leverage from to initiate the Thames River Fisheries Management Plan?
Through you,
Chris?
Mr. Chair, I knew you were going to ask that question. And the committee that oversaw this project kind of always recognized themselves as being a group that would take on different projects over time as they come up. And the fisheries management plan has been one that's been suggested. We've always said when it comes to fisheries management plan, we need the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry to kind of jump up and participate and champion that, which they haven't been able to do to date. Again, back to last time we tried with this, but there is some interest. Our First Nations partners that are more engaged by way of this project have an interest in that, so it's possible. So a lot of acronyms thrown out in this kind of, shared waters approach, Thames River Clear Water Revival. And I know a lot of you have been around and heard all of this before, but the Thames River Clear Water Revival is the group of people that are working on, in this instance was the redo of a water management plan, which we call the shared waters approach. And one of the steps is moving forward, we've kind of said, okay, we want to keep this group going. We'll look at the implementation of this, but we'll also step back and say, what's the next thing we want to tackle? And we often have project manager roles. We have chairs and co-chair roles. So for example, when we went through this one, we acted as the project manager of the Upper Thames. City of London was a co-chair, and the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, it changed throughout the course of the old Ministry of the Environment, was the other co-chair. So if we get to the point where, let's say we tackle, or the idea comes forward with this group that fisheries management plan is something we want to tackle, then you would start to anticipate things like a change in who the co-chairs would be. So maybe it would be shared between us and First Nations and MNR or something like that. So long answer to a question, but possibly, I guess, is the short version.
Tony?
Thank you.
Okay. I see no other speakers. So on the recommendation that we endorse the Thames River ZB shared waters approach to water quality and quantity created by the Thames River Clean Water Revival Project Steering Committee. Michelle, could you call the roll, please?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Item 6.6 is the Centerville Pond petition, and what in the recommendation is essentially it's a list of options to send to the municipality. So could I ask you to move the recommendations and Paul to second?
I so move the recommendations.
And seconded.
Thank you. Are there questions? I see Alan, then Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've seen a number of these proposals, and there's always opposition to removing a dam in these small type of ponds. And then every time we finally get it pushed through and people say, wow, that's great. We should have done that years ago. So I'm all in favor of the recommendations here and urging the township to consider decommissioning this dam. Put them on a bus and take them over to Hodges Pond and let them look around, because they've got another one right in their doorstep where it's worked really beautifully. So I'm all in favor of the recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you. Paul, then Tony.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ian, I just want to clarify it. The reason that the recommendations were made and that this is on the agenda is because the petition was to the Upper Thames, so it's up to us to make a response. But I just want to make sure that all the decision-making and all the costs will be Southwest Oxford's and none from Upper Thames.
Ian?
I'm going to make sure Chris Tasker backs me up on this, but I believe you are correct with that, Paul. Chris, can you just confirm on the cost? I know we have responsibilities through the agreement for maintenance, but I believe costs still stay with the municipality.
So even costs on maintaining the dam itself, that's that levy that's imposed directly to the local municipality that was mentioned when we were talking about the budget. Even the costs on the structures, the small structures, are levied to the local municipalities who benefit from them. So any way you look at it, whether we do any of the work that's discussed here, whether the municipality does any of the work that's discussed here, whether we're talking about removal or dredging, improvements to the dam structure, those costs are likely going to be pretty well entirely borne by the local municipality. There's very limited opportunities for us to get maintenance funding for the small structures. They rank very low. They are eligible for WECI funding. Occasionally we will get some funding, but not for dredging, but for the maintenance activities they would, and possibly for decommissioning. And other staff other parts of our program areas may be able to get funding that might help decommissioning, but not likely dredging.
Okay, thank you for the response. I was interested in that because it, as noted at the end of the report, is similar here to what's going to happen in the future in Harrington and Embro, and Zora's responsibilities towards that. So thanks for clarifying that for me.
Okay, Tony?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess I was kind of reading this and thinking that recommendation number 2, encouraging the municipality to go through an EA for better public consultation, there's a cost associated with that, and I'm not sure that it's absolutely a requirement that they would have to do that. So that's probably not going to be much of a motivation for them to move forward with public consultation in an EA process. But I guess my question is there any urgency to respond and support these recommendations? Does it make sense to try to pull in a site visit before the next board meeting? And at that time, we would have firsthand visual and better knowledge of the situation, and could ask some questions on site perhaps, or after a site visit. I mean, a group site visit may not be possible, but individually it might be worthwhile board members having that opportunity to see the area, that for those of us that aren't familiar with it.
Ian?
I mean, certainly on any issue, if the board wants a site visit, that's always an option. In this case, I want to be clear that we don't feel the Upper Thames is ultimately the decision maker on this one. As Chris just explained, costs are borne by the municipality. The property was sold to the municipality. We assist certainly with the management of the structure and advise on that. So I feel our responsibility is to provide recommendations to the municipality. They are the decision makers. So from that perspective, I guess it's up to you as the board. If you feel site visits are warranted, if a deferral is warranted, we are somewhat aware this petition was submitted a while ago. We do feel some urgency to respond to the municipality and thereby the community. But it certainly will follow your direction if you want to defer pending a site visit.
Yeah, Ian, if I understand this correctly, I mean, we've been petitioned by members of the community, and it's not our call. You know, it's to change water supply to the pond. I'm not sure where that came from, but I think what you're telling us is we're putting it back on the owner of the property.
Yeah, that's a fair summary. We
Okay.
are. The petition, yeah, is worded. We're making assumptions on what they mean, and that's where our recommendations are coming from.
Tony, you still have the floor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, I'm satisfied with staff's recommendations. It was just more for a personal perspective, I guess, point of view. Even if these recommendations are endorsed by the board, I would still like to receive the information on the exact location so that in my spare time, I might take a drive and have a look at it just for mine's sake. I suspect that in the future, this will certainly be addressed to the board one way or another through a delegation or merely be a point of discussion. So appreciate that.
Okay. Mark, then Marie and Brian.
I guess first of all, on a lighter note, if the board is interested in watching my wedding video from 17 years ago, you're more than welcome to do so. We actually had our wedding photos taken at the Centerville Dam. Wedding was in Woodstock, of course, where I always live, but we went out to Centerville to the dam for our wedding photos. And we took our two kids that are now 14 and 11 there, about 2 months ago, and you wouldn't recognize the park from 17 years ago. You simply would not. It really is quite overgrown and stuff. So, I mean, obviously Southwest Oxford has an issue there as to what to do, remove the dam, fix the dam, dredge the pond, because the pond really is almost like a bog now and not a pond, in my opinion. Might have been the day I went there and the amount of rain they had or hadn't had at that point in time over the last month, but it was quite unrecognizable from when I was there 17 years earlier. My wife and I thought maybe we were at the wrong park, but we were certainly at the right park. So I just wanted to say that if somebody's looking for what the place looked like 17 years ago, I've got it on I've got it on video.
Thank you. Marie.
I'm having trouble unmuting myself too. Yeah, I just had a question about this petition. I mean, there's obviously a real sense of frustration here on the part of the people signing the petition. And I'm just wondering how the communication with them is being done. Is there like a particular person that, I mean, I just don't want to have them think that like, well, nothing's being done or wait to go through the municipality. What's the communication with like the leader of the petition? I guess is the question, sort of poorly worded.
Ian, can you speak to that, or someone else from
Chris
staff?
is unmuted, ready to reply. I'll defer to Chris.
Chris?
So yeah, this is challenging. We didn't receive the petition from the public. We received it from the municipality. Our conversations previous to this had been with the municipality a year ago when they were looking at concerns with the pond and what could be done. And the municipality at that point in time decided to await the next dam safety reviews to determine whether there were more issues with the dam. So communication is a bit of a challenge. I'm not even sure that the petition even provides us with contact information to be able to go directly back to the petitioner, other than the people who have listed their names within the petition. So that is a little bit challenging. That's why the recommendations are written to address this back to the municipality. As the property owner, they have definitely a say, more than a say, a decision as far as what to be able to do. And there's limited options for us as far as how what we could do. However, you know, we're offering to work collaboratively with the municipality to get them through whatever process that they can go through.
Marie?
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I didn't know how we'd gotten the petition, whether, you know, I thought it came directly from some members of the public. So if it came to the municipality, then I guess the best thing to do is go back through the municipality again. Thank you for that.
Okay, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess what we're watching is the classic example of what happened to most mill ponds in the area. Either they blew out the dam and flooded everything, or they just filled up with silt. there's an amazing book called by George Emery about mill ponds in the town of Ingersoll and all that goes through, and all the stench that's associated with them. So I feel everybody has nostalgic, including Mark, about this place that visited in the past. And I get where they're coming from. I agree. Let's send this back to the municipality, see what they want to do. It's really up to them. It's their property. And I agree with providing them options from a technical standpoint about what's best from Upper Thames view of it. But again, it's not our property. It's unfortunately not our responsibility at this point, unless Southwest Oxford makes it our responsibility and wants to pay for the charges for that. Yeah, with the petition, I guess the only thing I have a problem with the petition is that it's one-sided view, and it's only giving one option to sign the petition for, and that's and so you don't see what there could be a 95% of the citizens out there want to see the dam removed and have an offline pond, but that's not an option on this one. So we're only seeing a one-sided view. But yeah, send it back to the municipality with some recommendations, and then they can make a decision on what they want. And hopefully it'll pass through that we have, the people who did write the petition will notice that we have seen it and considered it.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers, so can I ask Michelle to call the roll on the recommendations that we are going to send to the municipality regarding the Centerville Pond?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
John Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Sandy Levin.
Yes. Item 6.7 is the recommendation that we support Ndmp proposals for intake 6 to continue efforts such as increased access to flood-related information, continued efforts to modernize and update flood modeling and mapping, modernize hydrometric data collection, and develop flood mitigation plans. Can I get a motion on the recommendation?
It's Alan. I'll move it.
Thank you, Alan. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Sorry, I didn't catch who that was.
Paul.
Oh.
Thank,
Sorry, Joe.
Either one.
One or the
Okay.
other.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff on the recommendation?
It's Alan. I've got a question.
Alan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to you to staff, I think it's a great idea. I'm just curious about how this impacts our budget. Are we anticipating that some of this, I realize it's not infrastructure like flood walls, but will some of this require matching funding from the authority and or from our member municipalities?
Who's going to answer that, Chris? Or Ian?
I can answer it from the perspective of the projects that that my unit is involved with. The answer might be slightly different for the other projects. These projects do cover a lot of different areas, and as you can see, we had a lot of help putting the memo together. But when it comes to the flood hazard mapping project, we already have funding in our budget to do that. We've been utilizing Ndmp funding since the inception of the program, basically, and we've been quite successful at getting it. So we would be using funding that's already in our budget as the matching dollars for this. So it's a great advantage to the municipalities, because otherwise this work would be done entirely at their cost. And going back to one of the items that was discussed in the budget, the NDMP funding is one of the reasons why we've been deferring some of our levy, because we know that came from the municipal targets, because we know that it's for a short period in time. It's great that they've offered an intake 6. This was beyond the original length of the program. So the funding that's coming will help our budget, not hurt it. We don't have to be looking for additional municipal dollars to go after this funding. I hope that addresses the question. At least from the perspective of my the projects that I'm involved with. I don't know whether Teresa or Tracy have anything different to add.
Teresa, Tracy, if you have something different, let us know. Otherwise,
Nothing more to add.
No.
okay.
It's consistent.
Yep, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, Michelle, could you call the roll on the recommendation to we support proposals for intake 6 on the National Disaster Mitigation Program?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Moving on to items for information, item 7.1, the section 28 status report. Can I ask Anna Marie to move it and Brian to second it?
Yes, I so move.
So seconded.
Thank you. Are there questions for Tracy on the section 28 report? Seeing none.
If I may, Sandy.
Oh, please,
if I
Tracy,
can, through the
sorry.
chair, I just wanted to point out this, we had a little issue with our header wanting to repeat on each page. Initially, it wasn't doing it for us at all. Our whole spreadsheet was corrupt, and I noticed that the permit numbers 132 and 140 repeated on each page of the September report, but the October report is fine. Just wanted to have that as a clarification.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions or hands, Michelle, could you call the roll on the receipt of the report?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Item 7.2, information item regarding the upcoming January 2021 meeting where we have the elections for the upcoming year for chair, vice chair, positions on the hearing committee, and positions on the finance and audit committee. Can I ask Jim to move the report and Joe to second it?
So moved.
And seconded.
Are there any comments from staff on this before I turn to the board? Hearing none. Any questions, concerns from the board? All right. So can I ask Michelle to call the roll to?
I think Joe has
Sorry, Joe?
I think Joe has a question.
Yeah, Joe, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, this also includes the source water protection liaison position.
Yes.
I'll-
Yes, Sandy, that was an oversight. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. So that'll be on the January meeting then. Okay.
Thank you.
Again, the report outlines what members interested in any of the positions are encouraged to communicate to the rest of the board. So I'll ask Michelle to call the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Moving on to 7.3, the rental house rates. Like all landlords in the province, we're unable to change, or we are unable to raise rents. So the report is for information. Can I get Mark to move it and Alex to second it?
That's fine.
And
Alex?
second. And
Thank
second.
you. Are there questions from the board?
Yes, Sandy, it's Alex
Please.
West.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, just I want to kind of reiterate my opinion, I suppose, that I'd like to see us get out of the rental business at some point in the future. Right now, the real estate market is super hot, and it would be a good time to liquidate if we could. That's my 2 cents on the matter. That's all I had to say.
Ian, did you want to speak to that point? Because I believe some things are moving forward to make it possible, at least to start.
Yes, through the chair. So Alex, yes, your opinion is shared via resolution with the board. So that's what staff are pursuing, is getting out of the rental business. Our best opportunity right now is working with Perth County or lower tier Perth municipalities to have an official plan amendment to allow severances. Currently, we don't qualify to be able to sever and sell the house properties in Glengowan area, which is the bulk of our rental houses. So that goes before Perth County, I believe, in the next 2 weeks for a decision. We've been working on this for a couple of years. So if that's in our favor, then that allows staff to proceed with, in many cases, getting out of the business and getting rid of the liability of these houses and the increased insurance costs and everything else. So we are moving in that direction, and our fingers are crossed that the OPA passes. That's it, Sandy.
Okay, thank you. Alex, anything else? Nope, I guess not. So Michelle, could you call the roll on the report, please?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins, Anna,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Item 7.4 is a report on the check-in meetings that Ian and Michelle had. Can I ask Marie to move it and Alan to second?
I will move it.
Thank you. Alan?
I will second that.
Ian, and you'd like to speak to the report?
I will just add 2 other comments that were received after this report was prepared to add to the lists that are there. There was a suggestion that the board not be in a rush to resume face-to-face meetings, and certainly as long as the mask requirement is still in place or physical barriers, that we continue to meet via Zoom was the suggestion. And secondly, this is for staff to consider I know some of you are challenged with how much real estate you have on your monitors. And when we share the screen with the agenda, it makes all of your tiles very small. And there was a request that we only share reports when needed, I guess. So we'll look at options to try and deal with that. And then certainly on behalf of staff, Michelle and I, you know, we met with all 15 of you. I have to say it was a very, very positive experience for us. You know, in light of not being able to chit chat in the boardroom before and after meetings, this was an opportunity to catch up individually. Your comments were great universally. There was, I felt your experiences were positive, but you had great suggestions as well. So it was time very well spent as far as I'm concerned. The list of ideas that's in the report, that's not everything. These were kind of the generic recommendations we thought was more appropriate here. But staff will move on these when and where we can to try and make sure you feel more engaged and that the board is more effective. So thank you to each of you for the time you spent and the thought you put into the comments for us. So I'll leave it there, Sandy.
Thank you, Ian. Anything else from the board? Seeing none, Michelle, could you call the roll on receipt of the report?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Don Edmiston,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins, Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes. Item 8 is the November 2020 FYI report. I sent it off to members of Municipal Council in London. Hopefully others do that as well for their municipalities. Other business. Ian, you have some concluding remarks?
Yes, thank you, Sandy. Just a reminder, no December meeting. So January will be the next time we get together. I'll repeat the draft budget now that it's been approved. We'll be sending it out hopefully later this week. I'm looking at Michelle to see if there's shock, but we'll do the best we can to get it out. Regarding Bill 229 and the special meeting we had last week, I will just continue to feed you email updates as we receive them. It changes by the day, if not the hour. But as far as a deadline, December 10th is the date the bill is expected to pass. And then more generally, I will say thank you very much to the board for kind of understanding accommodation support through 2020. This has been probably the most challenging year, one of the most challenging years I think we've had to deal with, not just budget, but operationally, and the board's been fantastic to support staff through this, so that's much appreciated. And then, finally, I'll say thanks for, I know several of you are putting extra effort in to get resolutions passed from your home councils regarding Bill 229. I know Anna's got one tonight, and several others have put that forward, so that's appreciated. So. And then I will just say, enjoy the Christmas break in whatever form that takes, and look forward to us continuing in the new year. Okay, Sandy, thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your patience working through a very long agenda. Thanks to staff for handling all the questions. And Mark, I see you have a comment or question.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I just want to let everyone know I just emailed them a picture of the Centerville pond that was taken a couple months ago. I will go through my wedding video and maybe skim a photo of what it looked like 17 years ago, just as comparison purposes. But I sent it to Ian and Michelle, so if they want to send that picture on to anybody else on staff there, they can forward it, because I just got the email addresses of everyone on the board here to send it to.
Okay, thanks so much. Seeing no other hands, I'll ask Don to move adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the year. Happy holidays and stay safe.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Take care, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sandy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.